So I got a number for you, 13. Only 13 instrumentals have hit the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 in the rock era. And of those 13, you might have guessed most are from movies or TV shows. But out of that small list of 13 that hit #1, there's only one rock instrumental that did it in all of music history. And it started out as a jam session. Once they recorded the song, it was an epic 18 minutes long. Coming up, we got the goods. An interview with the rocker who wrote the song tells us the story, along with his massive follow-up hit. Both of these songs are mainstays on classic rock radio. You're going to love this interview. This guy's wild and crazy. Coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you were raised on radio, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our community. Click the bell so you always know when our latest interviews are coming. We got some good ones. Also, check us out on Patreon. We have more content there, and that helps us keep it a daily channel. So it's time for another edition of our show, Revelations, where artists give exclusive behind-the-scenes experiences about their biggest songs and their biggest albums, insight you just won't find anywhere else. Today, really excited to show you our sit-down interview with the great rock and roll mad scientist. I'm talking about Mr. Edgar Winter. This is one of the most interesting interviews I've ever done. Mr. Edgar Winter is an amazing individual. He's written and jammed on several classic rock standards, including today's focus, the rock instrumental Frankenstein. Also, he's going to talk about his exquisite follow-up, Freeride. He tells a story about birthing the classic Frankenstein or recording it, how it rose to the top of the charts as the only rock instrumental to hit the #1 spot in all of the rock era. There have only been 13 instrumentals that have gone to #1. From the theme to A Summer's Place by Percy Faith in 1960, to Grazing in the Grass by Hugh Masekela in 1968, to The Hustle by Van McCoy in 1975, to the Star Wars theme / Cantina Band by Mecco in 1977, to the Miami Vice theme by Jan Hammer in 1985. But only one rocker so far. There actually hasn't been a #1 instrumental hit since 1985. Do the hustle! We're also going to get the story of the Edgar Winter Group's massive follow-up, Freeride, song written by the great Dan Hartman. Yes, the same Dan Hartman had a big hit in the 80s with I Can Dream About You. Edgar actually did make some contributions to the song, but he didn't want to be greedy and ask for a co-writing credit because Dan Hartman had made so many contributions to songs that were solely credited to Mr. Winter. Actually, Freeride was released first, but it went nowhere. But after Frankenstein went to #1, they re-released Freeride and it went to number 14. Many saw the song as a perfect road trip song, though Dan Hartman has said in the past it was written as a spiritual journey. So let's get into it. Here's the story from Edgar Winter himself as we get into this mini documentary on these songs. I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I'm wearing now. The best part about Zenni, for me and for most people, after wearing them for almost 3 years, I've had 15 different pairs. I love the variety of styles, the price point, and the features like blue blocks. I can get 3 or 4 pair for what I've paid for one in the past. And I've actually beat my migraines with the blue blocks, looking at blue screens every day. So you got to check it out by clicking on our info button. You'll get the best prices. Here's Edgar. Tell me about recording that song about Freeride, because that's been one of the biggest classic rock staples ever.
Well,
how did that come together?
His demo tape had that lick, the dun 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 dun, and I said, "Oh, that is the classic signature, riff. There has to be a song written around that." And Dan already had the idea of Freeride, but when I thought about it, like there was a negative aspect to taking a Freeride. The main two lines for me are, "We've got to do better, it's time to begin, all the answers must come from within." That was the message that I wanted to try to convey with the idea of Freeride. Since that time, it's been used in so many movies and so many commercials because it has the word free in it. And so, of course, business people are immediately going to say, "Oh, free! That'll be the perfect inducement." The Air Force wanted to use it as a recruitment song, and we didn't allow that. But you could hear it, with that, like jets, and
that's why Air America used it.
Yeah,
in that movie. Yeah.
As you know, the American participation.
It's a very spiritual song. I mean, I feel
that's the way I saw it. That's what I wanted to try to make it a universal message, and I just thought it had all of the elements, and then I liked the kind of "come on, take a free ride, yeah." It's kind of gospel-y, It had everything I thought that
the rock and roll song should have.
Yeah.
To me, it makes me think of freedom. Not free like a free ride, but just freedom, like free, just being free, your spirit being free. And it's just incredible that way. That opening guitar riff on the Strat.
Yeah.
Kind of pan slightly to the left. It's a great headphone song. That's what I love. When I'm testing out a pair of headphones, that's one of my top.
I listen to music on headphones constantly. I love that too.
That delayed reverb on the right when it comes in. What I love about it is the B section feels rushed in a good way. It's like, because that was before they had a click track. So the drummer, it makes it a spontaneous song.
Well, one of the little known, that's not Chuck on. When the first two songs that we recorded in the studio, it was Johnny B who played with Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. Johnny B was the drummer, and we tried re-recording it because I thought that the snare was kind of thin, and and the fact that it was playing on every beat on foot playing forward, and. When we made it bigger and made it sound what we thought was actually better, it just took up too much space, in the track, and it just lost the vibe. So we use the original. We use the original one.
Tavares had an R&B hit with it.
Oh yeah. The Tavares version, I like.
Yeah, that's cool. It went to number 8 on the soul charts.
I remember somebody telling me in an airport they knew I was somebody and didn't know who I was, and I said, "Oh, I'm Edgar Winter. I had that that song Freeride. Mountain is high. No, that was the Doobie Brothers." And I said, "Well, yeah, it sounds like it could have been a Doobie Brothers song, but
you can tell China Grove may have come a little bit from that. I can hear a little bit of that." But Power Rangers movie, my kids saw it, and that's where they started loving it, was a Power Rangers movie.
But Freeride it's become a classic rock song.
It has. Let's talk about arguably the greatest rock instrumental of all time in Frankenstein.
Now, on to Frankenstein.
Yeah, like
I don't know
I
if we have
said,
time for the whole story, but I had written the song years before when I was playing with Johnny. I wrote the riff, dun, 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 dun. And I said, oh, that's a cool blues riff, the Johnny's Blues Trio it's like a cool walk on. And I played Hammond B3 and played an alto sax solo. And then we had 2 sets of drums on stage, and I played a dual drum solo with his drummer, Red Turner, and we called it the Double Drum Song because of that. So when synthesizers came out, I happened to be the first guy to have the idea of putting a strap on the keyboard. And
you invented the Keytar.
I had... Well, yeah, people started calling it that. I didn't call it anything, but I just was really frustrated being stuck behind a big bank of keyboards and nobody can see what you're doing. It's just, I want to get out there and boogie.
Yeah.
As everybody can see what you're doing. And when I saw this synthesizer at Manny's Music in New York, and there was the Moog, which was the big clunky unit, all one piece. But the R2600, which is the synthesizer that is used on Frankenstein, it has like the keyboard is a remote keyboard, and it's connected to the brain or the guts of the thing, which is this mad scientist-looking contraption with all kinds of knobs and sliders.
Yeah.
And I saw the keyboard. I said, it looks like you could just put a strap on that and play it like a guitar. So I thought, well, now we need a song to feature this as an instrument and a showcase. And I said, I bet that old double drum song. We had played that all over the world. We played it at Albert Hall in London, and we played a version of it at Woodstock and forgot all about it. I said, I'll bet that would sound great with this subsonic synth bottom. And so we worked it up and put it into the show, and it was just like the first time I walked out on stage with the keyboard. It was just just one of those rock and roll moments. I said, oh, this is really cool. I mean, I just thought of it as a way to get out from behind these keyboards. It never occurred to me that it would be such a powerful image. And then when it came to recording, we never intended to record that because it was like 15 or 20 minutes long. Yeah. And I kept writing different, as I would discover a new sound, back then, you had to use patch chords and you had to understand wave synthesis, and it was pretty scientific. So the cardinal rule back in those days was tape is always rolling. So we just accidentally had some, 2 or 3 versions, like 15 or 20 minute versions of the thing. And at the end of the project, Rick said, well, maybe we could edit that into something. And back in those days, the only way to edit something was to physically cut the master tape. And it was
and splice it back together.
Like cutting a diamond. If you screwed it up, it was gone. So it was a great excuse to get even more blasted than usual and have this big end of the session, end of the project editing party. So we had the thing all cut up, lying all over the control room. It was like draped all over the studio. Draped over the backs of chairs and on the console and on the couch. And we were just looking, trying to figure out how to put it back together. And Chuck Ruff, the drummer, mumbled the immortal words, wow, man, it's like Frankenstein, drawing the analogy of an arm here and a leg there and pacing. As soon as I heard it, I said, wow, that's it, Frankenstein.
I love that.
And so the monster was born.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about is you also performed it over and over to get it right. And Rick Derringer, you'd said that said, let's just put these pieces together. And wasn't supposed to be a single. That's what's so cool about it. Because it was the B-side. Hanging around, right?
Freeride was all along. We thought, that's a song, that sounds like a radio song. Yep. I can imagine driving along, and hearing Freeride. Seemed like a great car song. So, we released the album, we released Freeride, it went nowhere. And so we went on to the next, and the next, and the next single. And finally, I don't remember if it was like the third or fourth release, and we had just about given up, thinking, well, might as well go on to the next. So I think it was the B-side of Hanging Around.
It was.
I'm not sure.
And it got flipped over by a DJ, and it just blew up.
And it started getting play on the FM underground college stations. And then there was one station that broke it, and they kept wanting a shorter and shorter version. And so we kept editing it even further. And I think they even had an editing contest where they sent it out to radio DJs and people sent in edits of it. But it is the perfect example of whenever anybody asks me if I have any advice for new, people that are just starting out, it is always to play the music that you love, the music you really feel in your heart, the music that makes you happy. Freeride, we always believed in, and it was in a sense like we were trying to write a hit.
Right.
We were trying to be commercial. And then Frankenstein was this thing that we never even intended to be on the album. That was just because we just loved playing it and it was fun. And it was
you at your best. Because Johnny used to love to introduce you on stage and with that song because you could play all the instruments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I thought the radio was broken because of the do-do-do-do, you hear that coming out and you're like, what's going on? Just one of those songs that boggles the mind, and it just makes you appreciate and love rock and roll. Was Moby Dick ever an inspiration?
No, the whole thing just was a confluence of odd moments that just happened to gel and come together. It's not like I got the idea and then figured out a way to bring it into reality. It was just something that that seemed to take on a life of its own and fall into place. You look at all the elements, like the riff. The first riff could have it could have just never gone any further than that. Performed it, I could have never thought, just seen the synthesizer and said, hey, I can put a strap on that. None of those things, necessarily had to happen, but they all came together in such a way.
Number one hit too.
Yeah,
went to number one. And
then we re-released Freeride. I put a little synthesizer on it, and and it was a huge hit. So go figure.
So leave us a comment about this rock classic, Frankenstein, and Edgar Winter and the Edgar Winter Group. What are your memories of the song? What is your take on instrumental songs? Why have there been so few that have been hits? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe below so you never miss out on our interviews and our stories. Check us out on Patreon. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.